Well, welcome. In this demo, I'm going to talk about creating tables in InDesign. So you can convert text to a table, or you can just go ahead and create your own table. So couple of options. In InDesign, I have a document that's open, and I'm going to draw a text box here, and I'm going to go up to the top where it says insert table, insert table. And then you'll notice down below where it says convert text to table. So I'll show an example of that as well. But for now, I'm going to insert a table. So thinking about rows and columns, you can always add more later, but you need to have some kind of idea of how many rows and how many columns. So columns are, you can think about newspaper columns, they go vertical, and body rows are across. So if I'm thinking of columns and I'm going to do something that's like let's say January through December, so I'm doing 12 months across, plus I need one on the far left side to kind of list those bills down the side if I'm doing like a bills type thing. So let's just do something like let's do 18 and 13, and we'll say okay. So across the top, I want some kind of a header. And so right now you can only type in these little spaces, so in each of the cells. So anything you're going to do with your table is going to be under this table. So I'm going to go ahead and say merge cells. So I just highlighted that whole entire row, which I can do by click, hold, and drag, or I could just hover over on this left side and it'll highlight the entire row. And same thing going downwards, or if I want to do the whole thing, that left corner will highlight the whole thing. So I can also click and hover over these lines, and it'll give me this arrow with a line in the center, and that allows me to click, hold, and drag, and I can make kind of that entire row a little bigger. So what I'm going to do next is, if I'm thinking about expenses, I might do something like 2020 expenses. And of course, I'm going to make this more like some kind of a header. I'm going to center it. I might even go to an all caps kind of thing here so that it just feels bigger. I can also click on this. Let me see if I open this up a little further, if it gives me the option. Yes, right here. This says align center, so then it centers in the box. So I typically will highlight this and do that for everything, align everything in the center so that it hovers kind of in the center of your box area. So across this top right here, this is where this is going to have my expenses. So in other words, this might say mortgage or rent, whatever it might be. So I'm going to skip this one, but here I'm going to go with January, and I'm going to select that whole entire row and center. So that way they're all centered within that box. And for the first one, I'm going to go ahead and set this as a bold. And I could absolutely do something like fill these with your swatches, maybe fill it with a black, and then my text is white. So then when you click off, you can see that it just changes it so now it feels a little more like a header. So, and again, if you just highlight the whole thing, and I didn't highlight that first one there, but I did highlight the rest of these, and I filled it with black. Then I clicked on the T tool for the formatting effects on the text, and I just changed the text to white. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go to my paragraph style because I did center it, and I'm going to make a paragraph style for that, and I'm going to call it months, and apply the style to the selection and say okay. So now I'm going to click in the next one, and I'm just going to go February, March, so all the way across. And keep in mind, I can click, hold, and drag and make that slightly larger. And right now, I'm looking at it in this normal view, but if I go to preview, you don't see all those lines. I kind of switch between the two. So in this view, it looks fine, but when I go to this view, these lines are really dark and a little bit hard on the eye. So I might change up how those the strokes are, which again under table, cell options, strokes and fills. This tells you my strokes, all strokes, even the ones in between, are 1 point and they're black. So I'm going to change this to 0.5 and I'm going to change the tint to 70%. And I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to go back to this preview so we can look at what this looks like. And you can see that feels a lot better on our eye. I'm reading more of what the chart says and a little less of those like really bold type lines. So if I wanted to adjust these rows so that they were the same, I want to keep them consistent, and you can see up here it's showing the row height and it says at least, so it's at least 0.0417. I change this to exactly, and then you can increase these. And so it shows basically what your height is for all of them. So that's one way to keep it consistent. So if you were to adjust one of these and then highlight them, notice that that number is gone, and that's because they're not all exactly the same thing anymore. So you can change these individually, or you can keep them the same. I'm going to undo. So you could keep them exactly the same by doing this. And also keep in mind, if you see the red plus, it just means that you have more than what you're showing. So I'm going to go ahead and decrease this a little bit. And then this is the row or the column width. So if I were, I already have this evenly spaced across, but I could absolutely change these either same way, hover and expand. So this one might need to be a little bit bigger because some of my things might be a little longer than what I've got here. And then I could highlight all of these and make them a little bit smaller. But I'm also putting dollars in here, so I want to make sure that that's big enough. So keeping that in mind, I might also want to go to Document Setup and change this to a landscape horizontal view. So then that way I have a little bit more room for that information. So I could make this a little bigger, and then I typically try and keep these the same size if I can. Sometimes you need one bigger, that's fine. But there you have kind of your calendar. And I'm going to go ahead and decrease that a little bit just so it's all on the page. So I would be thinking about, okay, what are all the bills that I have? So this is just an example, and one of your exercises, your homework 4, you're doing a table where I'm asking you to have columns and rows, and you're going to be doing something like this with a header. So this is just an example of something you could do. So I know that I have, you know, a car payment, and if you hit tab, it takes you across, and if you hit the down arrow, it takes you down, so you can use your arrows too. So I might have car insurance and electric bill, oops, and gas and water. So you're just basically putting all your bills in here. Well, you don't have to put all of them, but I'm just saying as an idea, this is a great way to just do the tables. And then if I wanted to add something to the end over here, I could, like if I needed to add some other column, I could go up to Table, Insert, column, and then it's going to ask you, do you want to insert it to the left or to the right? So if I insert one, and keep in mind you can do more than one at a time, it'll add a column there, and it works the exact same way with the rows. Insert a row above or below. So I can insert one, and then it inserted it for me. Okay, and then you can rearrange rows. So if I want to move this one down, let's see if you can just, I highlighted it, and then I'm going to click it and hold it and move it to wherever I want it. So you can see I just moved car insurance down. So it's highlighted, and then I click, hold, and drag and move it wherever I want. So that's a good way just to rearrange, and it works for your columns as well. And then let's say that on my, let's delete this one. So I'm going to go back to table, delete column, and it'll just delete it. So if this were me, I would really probably not want this line that goes up and around. I like that it's centered within it, but I don't really want to show it. So I'm going to highlight this, go back to table, cell options, strokes and fills, and I'm really wanting to affect the sides and the top. I'm going to leave the bottom. So if you deselect the bottom, so it will not affect this line that's on the bottom of this entire row, but it will affect the sides and both sides and the top. And if I just make that a 0, and even if I hit preview, you could see it just jumped. And if I click off, now that's gone. It's still a cell. I can still highlight it, but I'm not showing those outside lines. And you can do that within here too. And not that I would want to do this, but on, like, let's say on February. Let's just do February, cell options, strokes and fills. And let's say that I wanted to take off the center. So let's say this center middle line. If I don't want those, if I hit 0, it goes away. So now it's still a cell, so I can still highlight, but it just got rid of that middle divider. And I just hit Command Z just to undo, but I wanted to show you. Another thing you could do is you can highlight all of your rows, go to Table, Cell Options, and then actually we're going to go to Table Options, Alternating Fills. So I usually hit Preview because I like to watch what I'm doing, and this will show you, this little drop down gives you some options. So I'm going to go every other row, and I have it set at black, so it's going to be gray basically, which is what I usually use. We'll try it at 20%. And this also asks you if you want to skip the first row. So if I have a black header up there, I usually skip the first row so that it's black, white, and then gray. So let's click off of here and see if I got that right. And there you go. And for some reason, this one changed. Not sure really why, but I would just go back and change this to 100 because that's more of my header. And even this one, like, I can highlight this and change this to nothing if I wanted to. And I could take this off too. So for example, I could highlight this, go to Table, Cell Options, Strokes and Fills, and I'm going to take off the top and the left. So I only want the top and the left showing here, and I'm going to hit 0 and OK, and now it took that part off. So that feels a lot better. All right, so there is the strokes and fills and alternating fills. Also, if you have multiple pages, you can also do, you could repeat the header. So let's, so this is header and footer. So if you have a header row, I didn't set mine up as a header row, so I'm going to change it to be a header row. I'm going to show you how to use this. And then repeat header once per page. So what this does is when we have a second page and this continues, then the header will actually repeat. So for example, let's see if I could copy and paste this. We'll see if it'll work the easy way. Well, kind of. Okay, let's see if I could do it this way. Copy and paste. It didn't work. Okay, so let me, actually, let's do the swatches. Let me change that to black. Okay, yeah, so that worked. So what I'm going to do is cut this, and I'm going to go to table, delete row. And then I'm going to go here and go to table, insert, row, above. I'm going to highlight that, go to table, merge, and notice you can always unmerge. And let me paste that here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue this onto another page. So I'm going to hit the little red plus. I'm going to come down here and notice that it repeated that header because I added it. And I said I want you to repeat on each page. So that's a really great way to just make sure that when you're looking at numbers down here, you don't have to go in your head, January, February, March, April, May. Okay, I'm on June. You know, it just repeats that header down below. You can also place a graphic in a cell. Not that I would want to do that on my bills, but let's just say that this row down here, let me just make this a little bit bigger, and then make it a little bigger so we could see it. So I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm just going to paste in this picture here. So that's actually attached in that cell, so I can't get it out. Basically, it's going to move with it. So whatever I do to that cell, that picture is part of that cell. So I can still click on it with my white direct select tool. I can make that image. I can do some things to it if I want. I can move it around. I can make it a little bit bigger. So I can do whatever I want to do with that direct select tool. I can also select it if I want to pull it out, cut, and then I can just come outside and paste it. So now it's no longer in there. But you want to make sure that if you want it to be in that cell, that you select the cell, click in there, and then go to File, Place, and then that's how you're going to place it inside that cell. Okay, and then let's go to, I do want to show you how to convert text to a table. So let's open this up a little more. Just delete that, and let's go to File, Place. So let's try this. So here I just grabbed, this was in Excel, and so I just placed the text. So if I highlight this and I go to Table, Convert Text to Table. So this is how you're starting with text and changing it. And your column separator is going to be a tab. Your row separator is going to be a paragraph. And there are other options here, but I'm going to say OK. So then it went ahead and separated it. So what that meant was that there's a tab between each of these and just a hard return, meaning a new paragraph. So that's how it knew to separate. So this is a good way just to bring in some information and then just create a table from that. And notice that this is larger because there's a second word. And you would want to make sure you took off hyphenations, or the one above it says rep, so you could also just change that to rep to be abbreviated if you wanted to. Okay, so I think that's everything on the tables for now, just to get you started. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.